Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Wait for 2-3 minutes for everybody to join in and then we'll start. The name is different, that's it. Locations are different. Jami Masjid is in Agra, Jami Masjid in Delhi. Caves can only be Vihara also. Chaityas are not necessary. Good morning. Yes, yes, yes. Anjali, yes. Email ID. No, we'll not study rock cut temple. Why would we study? No. PTS, I think within the next 10 days, 10, 15 days. Mid of December, it always starts. Sure. Leslie, you can do that. A regional I will do in the end. Miscellaneous topics. Jaunpur and all. Jaunpur, Malwa, Bengal will do that. Contribution of Bhakti saints to religious and social history of India. Caste, gender, devotion, personalization, challenging the notions of society, breaking institutionalized religion, multiple. Okay. I may have not seen the email. Yesterday whole day I have class, so maybe today, tomorrow. I may I have seen it maybe, but I have not replied to. I have emails pending. Don't worry. islive@byju's.com for any question answers. Okay. If you remember, we have covered one major thematic architecture. And with regards to architecture, we have covered ancient, early medieval, and medieval. What we have to cover today is modern India, and that's not a very long discussion. And after modern, we have to go into a new thematic called paintings. We will finish paintings today, and this week we will cover most of our art and culture syllabus, because tomorrow we'll do sculpture. Then after sculpture we go into dances, music, then theater, puppetry, the concept of martial arts, then further smaller topics of this area, UNESCO, this, that, and in the end we'll do miscellaneous topics and art and culture. So very simply, we are going to cover it in this way. We're going to cover it in this way, and this, I think this today is fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. Then then 11th, 12th. 12th is your last class. So we have this is what, this is the fourth class. Yes, perfect. 6 more classes. So that is the way we will go about it. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Yes, perfect. So what we start today by is called modern architecture. Now, modern architecture in India is based on 3 influences. One is called the concept of British, that is can be divided into 2, Gothic and Indo-Saracenic. Then you have Portuguese, and then you have French. They influence most of the things in Goa and West Coast, and they influence mostly on in Pondicherry and East Coast. Now, the first thing which we see, is Portuguese influence. Portuguese influence, which is quite evident in Goa and in and around that area, are 2 things. One is called portico houses, and the second one is called Baroque style. Baroque style. Portico houses are houses in which there is a house, and you would have seen it for sure. There's a lot of space in the front and in the back. The concept of courtyard or space in front and back. How nowadays most of the houses are made, that there's a lot of space in the front. We used to have a model which was exactly the opposite of this, which is the concept of the central courtyard. The Angan concept, this was rejected here, and rather it was front and back spaces. And this golden embroidery, which you think, golden decorative style, which you see on the doors, on the ceiling itself, this is called Baroque style. This is Baroque style. These two are the 2 major contributions of the Portuguese, in a way that they were very clear in influencing. In Goa, you'll find this type of houses, and they were, in a way, this is called the patio houses, the portico houses, as they're called, portico houses. They are basically an influence of the Iberian style. Iberian means Iberian Peninsula. which is nothing but Spanish and Portuguese together. So that it is a Spanish also a little bit, Spanish plus Portuguese influence, which is again true for Baroque style also. And we can see the expression of Portuguese architecture in multiple buildings. For example, in Dew Fort, in St. Paul's Church. In Mumbai, we have the Castella de Guarda. We also have, for example, say Cathedral and basically a Bon Jesus in Goa itself. And we see basic what we call as portico style, Baroque style. This is the most longest. This is a legacy, which is that till today we are influenced by Portuguese houses and Portuguese house design, wherein we try to make very big houses with a lot of open space in the front. This is a totally concept like a mandap thing. It is basically a concept which we have picked up patio houses from the Portuguese. So in the exam, if you find these two words, portico or patio house, and the word Baroque style, you automatically will associate it with the Portuguese. Now, when we talk about the French, the French influence is basically based on one concept itself, which is the French influence is based on what is called the Cartesian grid plan. Cartesian grid plan, wherein what you see at Banavali, which is the concept of radial design and concentric circles, where you have a city center, is basically called is basically called a French influence. Baroque style is nothing but which you see here. This way of decorating the walls and everything, this is called Baroque style. There's nothing here. Used inside the house, not outside the house. It's a decorative way of making rooms. That's the only way. Aishwarya Abhijit. So I hope that you understand this. And as I said, French influence, which we see at Puducherry or in Chandranagar or in Mahe, Karikal, and Yanam, we see what we call as a concept of urban planning. And Pondicherry was one of the first cities to be planned. And Cartesian grid plan was used, which is also reflective of how Pondicherry generally is organized. Pondicherry is basically or is in concentric circles. A radial plan of city is called as Cartesian grid plan. Or a Cartesian grid plan. So now in the examination you have to look for, in prelims there cannot be a full mains question on this. In the prelims examination you have to look for three words: Baroque, patio, and Cartesian, and you should be very clear in associating the first two with the Portuguese, the second one with the French. So I hope that these three terms are clear. You don't have to show it to them, you just have to point out. 3. Can we now look at the more important, which is English designs, because that is what dominated India generally. Okay. Now, when we talk about the English, between 18, not even 18, between 1765 to 1911, the design which the British followed in India, or the architecture which they followed, is called Indo-Gothic or Gothic. Now, basically, this word Gothic Gothic refers to the Christian based architecture in which you have references to the cross, to the Bible, to biblical animals, and mostly if you look at any building from the top, the ground plan will be mostly like a cross. So it's a Christian influenced understanding, and the most important expression of this is today what is called the Chhatrapati Shivaji terminus, but is also was previously called Victoria terminus. If you look at the Chhatrapati Shivaji terminus, you will see 3 to 4 very important Gothic concepts. First is the use of crosses to top the buildings itself. These are the references to cross. This is the cross, Christian cross. Other than that, other than that, you have the very dark roofs, which are either brown or black. Over and above that, over and above that, this specific type of this specific type of what we call as arch, which looks something like this. If you go closer to it, it will be, this is a very Christian thing to have these three division of the arch itself. And further, if I go a little bit more further, I'll find imagery which is Christian oriented and inspired. So the fact of the matter is that Gothic design represented a certain power and differentiation between Indians and Britishers. And that is why, if you've ever been to, for example, old Mumbai parts, which is Kolaba and all, if you have been parts of old Calcutta, parts of Madras, the three major cities of the British initially, you will find this architecture quite a lot, which is Chennai. In Chennai, in Calcutta, and in Mumbai, which is Bombay, you'll find this architecture quite a lot. And from the inside also, this is Victoria Terminus from the inside, this high roof, which is slanted and sloping, again is something which is quintessentially Gothic style. This is the Chhatrapati Shivaji Terminus. This is the railway station, also was previously called Victoria Terminus. So Mumbai High Court, Mumbai, what we call as the police station, police headquarters, Kolaba, Elphinstone College, that whole road till Sensex, all of it like right. The oldest part of Bombay. That whole road which goes from the Taj towards Gateway of India, towards Victoria Terminus. Thereafter, the whole design or language, which is what we know as the areas in and around Sensex, which is Old Kolaba, and you have Elphinstone College, you have police headquarters, all that area. So Havra station, not that much, but the governor's house in Calcutta is a proper imperial design, imperial Gothic design in that regard. Yes, BMC office also, all of that is made like this only. So this was a way of the British to express power. This was the British expressing power. But as soon as Christian arch you want to see, this is a Christian arch. This is a Christian arch. Christian arch, Christian arch. You can see it here also. Christian arch here. Now, as soon as Delhi in 1911 capital is shifted, Luton and Baker, these two people were given the task of developing the whole. This is South North Block. North Block, Rashtrapati Bhavan, which was also called Viceroy's Palace. They are given the task of developing Delhi. But the Delhi architecture is in contrast to what we call as Indo-Gothic. They will give up this architecture in 1911, and between 1911 and 47, they will follow what is called as Indo-Saracenic design. Indo-Saracenic design, which is basically Indian, Mughal, and modern architecture together. And if you will start to look at North Block and South Block, you will start to find a lot of similarities. Sorry. Start to find a lot of similarities. And that similarity starts with this. Inverted lotus. Thereafter, chhatris. Then, if that was not enough, you have use of red and yellow sandstone. You instead get the chhajja. And if I go a little bit more deeper into the Rashtrapati Bhavan, you will start to realize that they have now started to take up the four Charbagh concept, which was previously called Mughal Gardens, now Amrit, something Amrit. So this is the North Block. These are two of the architects, Herbert Baker and Edwin Lutyens. Architecture I have dominated by these architects. Now, the concept. If you look at the Rashtrapati Bhavan from the outside, and then I'll go inside, you will start to find a lot of things which are actually related to it. For example, tripartite structures, chhajja, chhatri. This is called a upturned dome. This is something which the British used to do quite a lot, having a dome in which you can also go inside. It's a hollow dome in which you could go inside. The arches are back. the domes are back, and throughout these places you will start to find smaller and smaller references of concepts which we've seen previously. And if you go inside, you will find three things here which you've already seen. First is this. This is called a squinch. This is called a squinch. This you may have not noticed, but you've seen in Alai Darwaza. It's a very interesting way of distributing what we call as weight down. And the high ceilings, ignore Trump here. The high ceilings which you see here are based on again the Mughal and what we call as Lodi buildings, that you have very very high ceilings. But it's not that there was only this. They also created an assemblage of a lot of Indian understanding, and this is where the Orientalist understanding comes through. The reason why they turned towards this type of architecture and this type of architecture generally is because 1911, by this point of time, Calcutta had become a problem for the British. If you know modern India, you would know that nationalism was now going out of hand. And with nationalism going out of hand, what happens is that now they wanted to project a little bit of power which was not seen as a very different to something. So they are trying to again project that white Mughal feeling, which is based on the idea that we are not trying to do something different. We already have an understanding, and that is why they have created a assemblage like this. This is a very interesting room. This room, they have both types of architecture together, which is modern architecture in the way of arches and domes, how they are made. But on the ceiling of this room, you have Mughal painting being made or had been made by Mughal painters. In that sense, the paintings which you see here, some of them we will see today also. These are called Akbar Mughal painting series. But this way of decoration again is something which was avoided previously, and Baroque style was used. So rather they took again this inspiration from the arabesque technique or the technique of decorating walls, which is quite common in temples and in later Mughal structures, which is to have ceilings. And this is called a mural tradition. And today I will tell you that mural tradition, as much as it is medieval, is a very ancient concept. To have ceilings which have been actually very beautifully carved and beautifully painted with. So Rashtrapati Bhavan that ways is an example of how the British changed their concept, going from something like this, which started to instill power, tended to talk about a lot of what we today call as in a way tried to project a lot of power. Here it's more about subdued power. It's about being more inclined towards a certain set of notions which are not very very pronounced in that way. So they want to change their image itself. You will see this in the fact that if you look at the Supreme Court, or if you look at, for example, the Parliament building, old Parliament building, both that circular design now we know has been taken from what we call as the yogini tradition in India, in which you have the expression of Shakti in a certain Chausat Yogini cult, Chausat Yogini tradition in India, in tradition of Shakti. And the old Parliament building, or be it the Supreme Court, all of them have multiple Indian elements. Multiple Indian elements. So to be very clear, before we move to paintings, we've been doing architecture for a very long time now. Been doing for a very, very long time. Gothic is Indian Persian Gothic styles, iron, steel, and the thinner walls, much thinner walls than Indo-Islamic construction. Large windows, crucified ground plan, and it shows a sense of Christianity. Indo-Sasanic is a confluence of different ideas: circular buildings, modernity, utility, simplicity, Rashtrapati Bhavan and Supreme Court being a very important example. The point is, before we move to the next theme itself, within architecture, this is one of the biggest chunk of your syllabus. We've taken close to what, 3 classes, 4 classes in that regard, in covering that. The fact of the matter remains that you have to understand that in architecture we have IVC, we have Mauryan, we have stupa, we have cave, we have temple, we have medieval, and we have modern. Out of any of these sections, you can get prelims and mains questions. We will do sculpture tomorrow. We now will shift to the next, which is painting. Painting, again, very interesting module, very visual in that regard. So if we are clear about this, we move to next module, paintings. Can we do that? Everybody is clear about architecture, because this is the 90-page chapter which Nitin Singhania has. The 90 pages which you see in Nitin Singhania, this is the biggest chunk of it, the largest chunk of it. And therefore, this is where we've covered the biggest chunk, right? Are we clear? Yes? Perfect. Anybody wants to ask any question, please ask, or forever hold your accurate style of Mughal architecture is basically dome and arch removing pillars. Can I start painting? Sloping roof Bengal style inner. Gothic is cross ground or arc structure. Crucified plan is Gothic. Difference between medieval modern. Good question. Study Yali and all we will discuss art in sculpture. Today's influence on G20, again art, current affairs we will cover. Study of 90 books. You don't have to now go through that. I will tell you what to do with it. Don't worry. Okay. Modern architecture, as I told you, Baroque design, patio, Baroque, Cartesian grid plan, and we've done French architecture, Cartesian grid plan, I see Portuguese and French as it is. I don't care. Two places don't dictate everything. Indo-Saracenic, Gothic, a Cartesian grid plan, party of Baroque. This is only 5 things. New Parliament, again, I will discuss with you in a current affairs. What I'm asking you, you tell me. What I've taught you is okay or not. Everything else I will cover. Okay. Okay. Now, when we talk about mains question can be anything. I given you mains question for practice. You would have got mains question for practice out of this section on Saturday. I hope you've gone through that. Now, when we enter paintings, our orientation changes. And the orientation now does not start with IVC. We go a little bit further back. We go a little bit further back. And where we start is the upper Paleolithic. Please check it right now. It should be there. It has to be there. It has to be there. We go back to upper Paleolithic. If it isn't, I'll get that sorted. Upper Paleolithic period. I'll tell you what to do with Nitin Sikhania. Don't worry about it. And prehistoric art is something which is the first expression of paintings. Of paintings. Now, okay. The first question would be, what is painting? What is painting? Now, the answer to that is that anything and everything which you have made I will see, before you all get distracted, can everybody confirm to me that you got the subjective and the objective questions for the last week, yes or no? And it can't be yes sir and no sir both. No, not got. It should be in your dashboard. Have you checked your dashboard with regards to the where it says subjective test, objective test? Nobody is sending it to you. So it could be two things. Either it gets uploaded today, but some of you are weekly tests, some of you are telling there is, some of you are saying there isn't. So if it isn't not there, it will get sorted. If it is there, very good. For the people who don't find it, it will be there. I'll get it sorted before the class ends. So don't worry about that. So it should not be on today's date, obviously. It will be on Friday's date. Go and check the Friday class. It should be attached to the Friday class. There would be Friday, Saturday, whatever it may be. There you should know where it is. You should know where it is. You have been doing this for now a very long time. अगर नहीं है तो मिल जाएगा, अगर है तो बहुत अच्छी बात है. If it is not there, I'll get it sorted. Because half of you are again saying it is there, half of you are saying it's not there. On Monday it's present, so today it's present, perfect. It is attached to today's class, but yes, it is on Saturday. I don't know what confusion you have. This is not something I should be asking, but I'm asking because half of you are confused. So I think half of you don't know what I'm asking about. So I leave it. If it is there, sure, half of you are confirming it is there. I'll figure it out. I'll ask the team. If they say it is there, then it is there. You have to figure it out yourself. Okay. Now it is there. It is attached to today's class. So please, the people who don't understand today's class, they are saying subjective test is there. And one of you asked me a question out of it also. Objective and subjective test should be there. Okay. Now, what I mean by paintings is the concept of anything which is an expression of human consciousness or anything which you want to express generally. What I mean by that is that we all, maybe good or bad, paint, which is that you may not be a very good painter, but you know how to make stuff. You know how to make stuff, even that when you're bored in class, you start to doodle, you start to make things. So in a way, everybody knows how to paint or generally do something. It's a visual representation of your consciousness. Now, the first references of visual representation was seen in the Paleolithic period. We found it in the lower Paleolithic period also. But in India, it is the upper Paleolithic period where we start to actually get a lot of references to prehistoric art. Now, please understand, it means prehistoric. Prehistoric means Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic period till Chalco. And you can see our story starts a little bit further where we started architecture, because a connection is very, very important. Now, in India, we have multiple caves, natural caves, which date to the upper Paleolithic period, which have what we call as cave paintings. The technical term is petroglyphs. Petroglyphs is the word which is used for a certain type of what we call as, if I take a surface and I make something on it, it is called petroglyph. Stone painting is called petroglyph. Now, painting is an expression on anything. Whenever you make an image, it is a painting. An image is a painting. So we are very clear in understanding. No, in Ratnagiri, what you have is not a petroglyph, it's called a geoglyph. We'll discuss that later. That's current affairs. That's called geoglyph. Geoglyph and petroglyphs are different. Paintings are images made on surfaces and has to be on the surface, not inside the surface. Has to be on the surface. Now, petroglyph is the technical term for cave painting. Cave painting, petroglyph, same thing. Now, across the world, from lower Paleolithic period, we start to get references. India, we get the reference from upper Paleolithic period. And we start to get images such as this. These are called cave paintings. You can't see this one maybe, but these are like these images have been made like this. And we know that these are very old because what we do is that we date the rock. We date the rock, which is that we take a piece of the rock and we date it, so we get to know how old the rock is, therefore how old the painting is. All stone paintings are called petroglyphs. Yes, petroglyphs is a word for prehistoric painting. Now in India, there are two sites which are very, very important. Lakhudiyar, and the other one is called Bhimbedka or Bhimbedka. Now, first thing which you need to realize is that is that Bedka, same thing, different spelling you will find. Same thing. MP Bhimbedka. Now, first thing which you need to realize is one thing very, very categorically, that understand the effort which goes into making it. Understand the effort which goes into making it, which is that it is being done in natural caves, only natural light, only natural light. If I give you a piece of paper and a pencil and a pen and a sketch pen, whatever you want, you will not be able to make images which they made in the later stages. And these images show a certain sense of maturity. Show a certain sense of maturity. They have been done in dark and dingy caves, all out of memory. They have no reference to nothing. It's all made out of memory. It is all made by either your fingers, or by very rudimentary brushes. And it is also made in an era where you have no colors, you have to have natural colors in that sense. So imagine the level of effort which it would take to draw something like this, and thereafter also remember everything. You can't remember facts, they're remembering whole scenes. And the reason why these colors mostly last so long is because they are using what we call as chemicals around them, which they don't know are chemicals. And there's a chemical reaction which is happening with the stone. So most of these are done in such, for example, in iron oxide, or are done in what we call as limestone. And limestone and iron oxide bind with the rock very well because of the chemical combination. The point which I'm trying to argue to you is that modern art and modern artists have a lot of things at their disposal, have a lot of concepts at their disposal, have a lot of what we call as ideas at their disposal, resources at their disposal. But these are prehistoric people who had no resources, rudimentary, dark, dingy, not even natural light, if some artificial light in form of fire. They were making something which was actually much more valuable than what we see in the form of today as modern art or art generally. So remember this point, that this is extremely rare, needs a lot of effort, and needs a lot of commitment. Needs a lot of commitment. That is the first thing which you need to know. The second thing which you need to understand is the fact that at the end of the day, they have to also hunt, they have to also gather, and this may have been a leisure time activity, or these early painters could have been people who used to paint as a form of just spending time. Why am I telling you this? Because there was one question previously on a discussion which we used to have, which is that can I say that prehistoric art is equally valuable as modern art? And the answer to that question is it is more valuable than modern art, because modern art anybody can do. You just need the training, you just need the resources, you can do it. But Lakhudiyar Bhimbetka 800 caves, 500 of them have it, which means that everybody was doing it. But the level of commitment needed for it is very, 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 very interesting. Now, in the examination, three type of questions can be asked from prehistoric paintings. One is value, the other one is themes, and the last one is characteristics. Characteristics. Now, in order to teach you paintings, I need to first teach you three words. I have to first teach you three words. One is called naturalistic, stylistic, scale, and the fourth word we can do here in itself is depth. Is depth. This is a mains oriented area. Yes, yes. Mains oriented, three type of questions. Standard questions come out of Mughal painting, standard prelims questions we've seen previously, but questions do come. Hit and trial, they knew what color will come from. They were not doing it for us, so they just needed white color wherever they find it. Now, the first concept is of scale. First, you need to understand what is called scale. Now, pay attention. If you have your phone lying around, please keep the phone close to you. You would need it for 2 3 of these words. Phone, whatever it may be. See, first things first is scale. You know that this is in my hand and this is small because you know the scale, which is that this is smaller than this and this is smaller than me. So you basically can understand scale by having a certain idea of how they're placed in front of me and generally. But the problem is that I can also distort scale by keeping, for example, this in the front and this in the back, and the scale will change. The scale will change and it will feel that this is equally big as this one. One second. Yes, equally big as this one. Now this is called scale issue. If I don't play it correctly, it will seem like this is small and equally big. I can make it, yes, you see, exactly the same size. This is called scaling issue. But if I bring it into perspective, this is the level of difference. This is the level of difference. So I can make this bigger and show it, for example, as big as my head or my shoulder. But when I bring it here, it is not that big. This is called scaling issue. Paintings have this quite a lot. If you don't have an understanding of how scale is, it happens. So, for example, you will make an elephant. You can make an elephant and a man in the same scale. You can make it in the same scale. This is the problem. For example, an elephant and a man is showing like this, but the problem is that the elephant is much, much, much bigger than the man. This is called scale. Get it? Get scale. Understand scale. Scaling issue, come on. Nobody is teaching you this. So please understand it. Because these words will be sprinkled around throughout the class. Jasveer, if you're saying no, why no, and what about no? Scale means everything needs to be the way it should be. A building should not be as big as a man should be smaller than a building. If I'm making both in the same way, it is a problem. It is a problem. So that is the issue of scale. If you don't have right scale, you will make it in a distorted manner. You'll make it in a distorted manner, which is I don't have to write it down. You don't have to become a photographer that you need to know it. The simple point is that when you represent something, there can be a chance that you mess up scale. And that messing up of scale can be that things which are much, much relatively smaller and bigger in size can be distorted by making them in different ways. So you can actually mess it up. You can actually mess it up. Scale is a problem, and I will show you how it comes out. Scale is relative size to each other. Are we clear about that? How can scale be adjusted in rocks? They don't. They don't. The problem is that they make, I'll show you one theme. For example, you see here. Now, this fish is shown as big as this person. But what the person is trying to show is that this is closer, that is farther. But in the way of making further and closer, he has messed up the scale. This is the issue of scaling. That when you don't have, and I'll tell you, scaling happens when there's no depth, which was the second word I was coming to. Are we clear about scale? Scale means size, relative size to each other. Okay. Now, scaling issue mostly happens when there's an issue of depth, and this depth word is very, very important. Depth is wherein you know that, for example, which is the hand which is in the front, this is the left, this is the right, which is the hand which is in the front, the left one. Yes. Now how do you know that? How do you know that? You know it because of the fact that this Sony camera can capture depth. Depth means that it can capture the front and the back. It has the concept of capturing depth. See, I can be in the same plane. If you're 2D, for example, if you're 2D, you can see that my edge of my coat is going with the edge of this PPT. Here there's no depth. There's no depth at all. I'm inset into the picture. But if I stand like this, now you can see depth. That this shoulder is in the back and this shoulder is in the front. As soon as you add depth to the picture, it becomes 3D. If you have 2D images, you don't have depth. If I make a, if I'm making a cube into 2D, you have no depth at all. But if I make it like this, now you have depth. When it is three-dimensional, the 3D-ness of something is related. This is also called 3D-ness of something is also called depth. Depth is based on the idea that you can make out scale. So very simply, scale and depth go together. If you can add depth to the image, you will be able to add scale to the image also. Depth is nothing but the relative size of things and the 3D-ness of something. 2D things always seem to be very straightforward, but when I make them in 3D, there are other dimensions also you get to know. This is a very important point you need to understand, wherein depth is something which changes your perception of things. So 3D-ness, depth, scale. Anybody has any issue in these two? Depth, scale. But observation of depth and scale is same. No. You can have scaling right, but depth could be wrong. I'll show you that also. You could be making two images very well to each other. Here the scale is different. But the problem is neither of them have depth. So depth is always 3D-ness. Depth is always 3D-ness. You can make out scale. This is two scales. Relative size to each other. But depth is when I make it like this. Not breadth is not depth, whatever. It's 3D-ness. 3D, do you understand? Now, now, now comes the last two words because they are equally important. Will be used quite a lot. Scale 2D, 3D. Again, yeah, you're mixing two things up. It's not that difficult. It's not that difficult. When you make something in 2D or 3D, scale is always there. But you can make a 2D image without depth. But as soon as you add depth, it becomes 3D. That's the only difference. That is the only difference. It's not, you don't have to become a photographer. I am going to use these words. That is, I am saying 3D for sighting. For sighting is also depth only. This is for sighting. For sighting. These are all same things. All are same things, which is the fact that you can look into an image. You can look into an image. So you can understand that there are two scales here. This is called foresighting. I'll come to the next two. I will show you these things as we go on. Don't worry about that. They are giving depth by distorting scale. That is not true. That is not true. If I'm standing like this, my scale is not changing. This is scale. This is small. This is, I'm big. Now, if I keep it here, then I'm changing the scale. But I can still be like this. You are acting like you've never taken a picture. This is the irony of the story. All of you are on Instagram or Snapchat or on Facebook or something or WhatsApp, but ऐसे act कर रहे हो, you don't know what it is. Okay, now, a lot of your TikTokers and a lot of your Instagrammers use scale and depth to distort a lot of things. Now, there are two more words. Naturalistic and stylistic. Now, what I want from you is that if you have a phone which you're not using for this class, open the camera and take a picture in standard photograph mode, standard mode, basic mode, which is there. Take a picture, random picture, anything, yourself, whatever you want to. Now, much like the Aadhaar card or driving license, that is a naturalistic image. The true self is always captured on government IDs. They're called naturalistic images. Naturalistic means that what you truly are is captured in that image. That's called naturalistic. What you've taken through your phone is a naturalistic image with no filters on it. And now when you go into your library and you apply any filter on it, cool, vivid, whatever, you make the same image into stylistic. Meaning when I add elements to a naturalistic image, it becomes stylistic. Or when there's distortion of a natural image, it is called stylistic. These four words are the bedrock, four pillars of painting. One is naturalism. Aadhaar card type pictures truly captures your true self. Stylistic images which you use on your DP, in your Instagram, in your Snapchat, or anything, your passport size photograph, You have gone there, you've changed your skin tone, you've done a lot of things, ask the person to change a lot of things. That is called stylistic. You've changed a natural image into a stylistic image by changing and distorting the image itself. Then every image needs to have scale, and the other thing that they need to have is depth. 3Dness is something which is very hard to get because you need to have an understanding of depth foresighting to get 3Dness. Scale is something which can be managed, but scaling again in a way of creating certain things, it does create a lot of issues. Does create a lot of issues. You will see that most of the paintings which we see before Mughal paintings, specifically before Jahangir, will have two problems, which is depth or scale is wrong, or the other is called cluttering, which I will show you. Too many things have been added into one image. By cropping the image, you can distort scale. Why not? You can distort the scale. You can understand this point. Scale is not something what you see. Scale is in the image. What are the elements? Are they relatively in the correct scale or not? Scale can be distorted. Scale is a matter of perspective. 3Dness is a conscious choice of the painter to add a little bit of what we call as a little bit of elements which gives it a little bit of lifelike concept. But scale is not you and me. Scale is the image which you see. If in the image which you see there is a problem of scaling, what will happen is that it will show a building and then it will show a man equally big as the building. But the problem is that you would have seen people doing that at Leaning Tower of Pisa, or if you've gone to Taj Mahal, you would have also done it for your in your life, which is that type of pose in which you are holding the Taj Mahal like this. What you're doing there, or Leaning Tower of Pisa, people do it like this. What you're basically playing with is actually scale, wherein you are, because you're in front of the image, you're in front of the Taj Mahal, you are using the scale difference to show that you're holding the tip of the Taj Mahal or you're holding the Leaning Tower of Pisa. But you aren't. That image is distorting scale. That image is distorting scale because that building is behind you and there's a lot of distance. What is happening is, in a 2D capture, the scale is changing. So that person can then hold the top of that building, and that is the problem of scale in that sense. Scaling comes when you want to change the relative size of things. And depth is when you want to give 3Dness. When you want to give 3Dness to something. So it's a very simple, straightforward concept. Now I've introduced these concepts to you. What I want to do is that I want to show it to you as we go on. That is what is the endeavor here. That we understand these issues in the way they should be understood. Okay. Now, prehistoric paintings have been found in different parts of the world from lower Paleolithic period. But if somebody asks you when do we get it in India, it is in the upper Paleolithic period. And in India, you have Lakhudiyar in the Uttarakhand sector, Kumaon Hills, where we find multiple caves with Lakhudiyar itself means that there are 1 lakh images and 1 lakh caves in that regard. And the rock shelters here bear a lot of paintings. Lakhudiyar starts to give us the first question which can be asked in the examination, that what are the themes which have been discussed or given and what are the characteristics. So I told you one was value. Value is quite a lot. Now I'm discussing the themes and characteristics of these prehistoric paintings. Now, when we talk about the themes, there are two types of images which we've seen. One is animal imagery, and the other one is human. But if you look at this, you will realize that most of the human figurines are stylistic, while the animals are more and more naturalistic. In the sense that the animals are shown in their most what we call as closest closest scale possible, closest scale possible, and closest representation possible. But if you look at it, humans have been shown wearing or having certain headgear, and this is called a stylistic image, in which they are adding elements to the stick figures so as to represent new types of understandings. So we have found animal, man, geometric patterns in red, white, and ochre. Ochre is geruaran. Geru means what we call as ochre, red ochre. Do we know that it is stylistic? How do we know that it is stylistic? Chituri, check your head. Is there any headgear you're wearing right now? Check. Eva, check karo. Is there a hat you're wearing right now? No. So then it is an element which has been added over and above the image. So I could have made this figure like this also, but I'm making this figure with a hat. This is a stylistic image because I've added an element to the natural thing. Can you see that this animal wearing a hat or wearing certain form of jewelry? Yes or no? Ochre. Ochre color means that red color which you see, a red grayish color which you see, it's called ochre. Ochre is a type of color. Type it in Google, it will come. Okay, brickish color, ochre color, red ochre. There's gray ochre also. Okay, it is not tattooed. It's not tattooed. They are trying to show each of the different types of change or skin on the what we call as the boar itself. It's obviously a boar. The fact is that it's trying to show that it has a certain pattern of skin here, certain pattern of skin here, certain pattern of skin here. This is trying to be as realistic as possible. The design inside the animal is not stylism, because that is a way of trying to show that the animal is having different types of stylistic understand, different type of skin at that point. So animals are not like that standard. They are trying to show different elements. This is the level of effort which they are trying to apply. We already have stick like figures. That's okay. Now we have to discuss thematics. Bhimbetka, Vindhya Hills, MP, Kaimurian extension, basically the whole Vindhya Satpura range. 800 such shelters, and Bhimbetka have multiple. These are Bhimbetka thematics. Now, when we talk about thematics, thematics are quite interesting. Quite interesting that way. We have multiple forms of thematics in that sense, wherein you have, for example, this is called a hunting scene. And if you see, there are three things which you automatically can see. First is an issue of scale. This woman has the children on her back, but the children cannot be inside a bag like that, or a small, what we call as basket on her back. The animals are shown different. There's naturalism, because they're trying to show each animal different to each other by making a different geometrical pattern. We can see a very beautiful stylistic image of the hunter. He's wearing a headgear. We can see he has a bow and arrow. We can see that there are spears. These dots are there to show as much as naturalism as in the form of blood. In the form of blood, you can see that they have traps. But again, scaling issue remains, wherein this animal has died, but a whole person and an animal is shown in the same scale. So the problem is depth is missing. 3Dness is not there. But they're trying to do what they're trying to do. So you have men who are smaller than the woman itself, and these are called scale issues. These are called scale issues. If you go to another scene, these are the two very interesting scenes. This is called fishing scene. This is called household scene. Now, when we look at the fishing scene and household scene, you will see two very interesting things. This image actually has depth. Actually has depth. And whilst it has depth, we can realize that this person is in the back, they are in the front. And this image and this image showed both contrasting concepts. Here, the issue of depth is there, as scaling is not right. But what you have to appreciate is, we know that they had baskets, we know that they had nets. They are trying to again show every fish different via different patterns. So again, there's a lot of naturalism in the image. When it comes to eating something, they are trying to show that it goes inside the stomach somewhere. And certain household items, even a hut, is given to us or shown to us. Now, why am I saying that these images are very, very important? Because if we don't have these images, we have no other way of knowing what the prehistoric man was doing. Because at the end of the day, this is a totally new understanding of what we see as an understanding of depth, an understanding of thematics. If the prehistoric people would not have made these hunting scene, fishing scene, household scene, we would not have had an insight into what their day-to-day life was. Usually, the point is, depth issue does not get resolved. It is subjective. It is subjective because these are made together. So in some, they will try to manage depth. Still, issue of scale is there, but sure, why not? The fact it's not a linear progression. Some person may be making a better image. Some person maybe not be making a better image. The most fascinating painting we've ever seen is of a agricultural field. And as you can see here, in the agricultural field, what we see is that we have birds, and every pattern shows different crop. This means that it is showing to us that they were crop rotating, wherein this is a different crop, 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 this is a different crop. It is also showing water resources, irrigation. So in a way, again, fish is inside it, so it is irrigation. Again, this is something which would have evaded to us, that were they using a certain type of what we call as crop rotation or crop understanding. So the thematics, I think we are clear. Thematics, we are clear. That circle is just a gap which is there in the image. We don't know what was there. There's no concept. Multi-cropping is there. We don't know. That circle is a distorted area of that area. Not a well. It's a distortion. Certain parts are not very clear, so they leave it like that. Now, I asked you three questions. Value thematic characteristic. Now, what you write in the examinations, obviously, you can't show these images to them. You have to write the following points. First is that when we go to Lakhudiyar, we have different types of representation, and the scenes can go from dancing image to geometrical designs to group of dots. We have also seen superimposition of paintings, which means that if a person made up a certain painting, maybe that faded over a time. Somebody made it over and above that. So the canvas was used multiple times also. Now, when we talk about characteristics, this is what you would have to write in the examination. When we talk about the first period, Upper Paleolithic period, it exhibits the following characteristics: linear representation in green and dark red color of animals. We can don't learn the animals, obviously, do not learn this. And stick like human figures. Certain are wash paintings, certain are filled with geometrical design. Now, what do you mean by wash? So, in this image, can you see through the image itself? Yes, you can. You can see the purple here. So this is called a non-wash image. Now, if I make it like this, this is called a wash painting. You can see it here also. This this one is not in non-wash. This is wash. Non-wash wash. So this is a non-wash wash. When you don't allow transparency in the image, it becomes wash. And mostly wash paintings can also have filling of geometrical patterns. So this could be made like this also. This is also wash painting. In the wash, you cannot see the background properly. Green painting for dancers, green color for dancers, red for you hunters. This is very important. As early as in the Upper Paleolithic, we can see different colors for different groups, which is basically reflecting social ideas via color. Though there's no differentiation, color is now being used to differentiate between a dancer, a person who is not doing hunting, and hunters. Now, the Mesolithic period is the most interesting. The two colors try to show differentiation. They want to show the hunters differently. That's social differentiation in colors. The Mesolithic has much more sophistication, and that's why Mesolithic paintings comes the most. Here we see large number of paintings, animals in naturalistic style, humans in stylistic manner. In many of the rock shelters, handprints, first prints, dots have also been found, meaning they just pasted their hand like this. Thematics became more elaborate, but these pictures became smaller, which means that they were becoming more and more better in doing it. We have hunting scene, hunting in groups. Some depict animal chasing humans, and there's again, as we say, as thematic diversity. And primitive men were shown with traps and snares. Hunters wear simple ornamentations, and women could be shown both clothed and naked. Clothes, men wear certain headgear and painted masks, which are also shown. Different type of animals are also depicted. Further, Neolithic, we don't find a lot of paintings. Why was that? Why is that in Neolithic you won't find a lot of paintings? because we go for settled agriculture. And when you go for settled agriculture, you move out of caves. You go for permanent settlements in huts on plains. So pottery emerges, which gives you a lot of designs, but nothing related to cave paintings. So the paintings will go on pottery, which we'll discuss separately. But the point is that Chalcolithic shows both type of what we call as representation. But one of the Chalcolithic caves, which gave us copper also, they showed us an agriculture, which showed us that both were coexisting with each other. Hunting gathering societies were, nomadic societies were also existing with the agricultural sector. And the Chalcolithic painting, the Chalcolithic phase of Bhimbetka, multiple colors are used. Multiple colors are used. Most common is white and red. And where are they getting this? They are getting, for example, hematite, the iron oxide. They're getting red color. Chaldani is again a green colored rock. White, most probably from Chuna, limestone. And the reason why they have been for so long being on these images, because of the fact that there is a chemical reaction which is happening between the wall and between the areas. Between the areas. Further, in the exam, you will be asked value, thematic, and characteristic. If we are clear about this, we can take a break and then come back and go to mural. Will you be able to write the following points and characteristics? Will you be able to talk about themes which were there? And when they say prehistoric, will you be able to talk about its importance? Yes? Yes, no. Value means importance, which is hard to make, only way to understand day to day life. Themes is what? Hunting, fishing, etc. Don't try to associate colors with caves. Don't do that. Just tell them the colors which were there. Bhimbetka is yes, Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic. Carbon dating can tell you how old the rock is, which tells us which period it is. So it can tell us how many years old the rock is. That gives us an idea of which period it is. Yes, we can take a break here. Okay. So we come back at 7:45. Take the story forward. Welcome back. Yes, I am there. Not gone anywhere. You, sir, long break. ठीक है, we'll take cut time later. Don't worry about it. सबका हिसाब हो जाएगा, टेंशन में. Don't worry about it. If you're getting it, enjoy it. If you don't want it, that's a separate issue altogether. You pointed a issue out to me. I was getting that resolved. It has been uploaded. Some of you need to either refresh or do something. It has been uploaded. The people who are saying yes, it is actually yes. Actually, yes, it is there. And people have issue with long break also and short break also. Either way, I will find messages. Don't worry about that. Okay. So now we enter paintings. Is this architecture subjective test? How to? There is a question on cave architecture in subjective test. So some of you saying that, Kishan, send that question. I'll talk about it. Send the question. I'll make it public and we can then talk about it. Okay. Now we've covered cave paintings. We've covered petroglyphs are done. Now we move to the next expression of paintings in the Indian subcontinent. Next expression of painting in the Indian subcontinent, which is the concept of what we call today as murals. Murals. What is arcade in Mughal architecture? If you have a very big platform which has a lot of pillars, that's called an arcaded platform. The cave architecture represents tolerance within the KK has sent this question. This means that you got it. I was scolding someone for the wrong reason. It's already there in front of you. The Indian cave architecture represents tolerance within the Indian society during the ancient period. Analyze. Tell me, what do you have to write in this question? What do you have to write? Can anybody tell me the answer for this question? It says cave architecture. You are talking about Indo-Islamic architecture. Morning batch, wake up. Ashokan Dhamma. Ellora, very good, Madhumita. Ajanta, religious tolerance. Ellora, very good. Ajanta is not three religions. Shreyank, it is Ellora. Buddhist Jain architecture. Diverse country with architecture. Major rock edict number 7. The question is cave architecture. Why are you giving rock edict number? Cave architecture represents, this is the issue. I gave you a Venn diagram that day. And everywhere there was an intersection. That intersection represented a syncretic culture in India. So from Junar to Ellora to Bagh to the what we call as Badami caves, all represent a certain syncretic culture. This question is asking you, how does the cave tradition in India represent a syncretic understanding of our culture? The Indian cave architecture represents tolerance within the Indian society during the ancient period. Are they not a representation of tolerance if there can be multiple religious caves in the same place? This question is difficult. This is how you have to apply your knowledge. This is about Ellora being the best example. This is how you apply your knowledge. Sometimes it will not be spoon fed to you. Questions in UPSC ask straightforward things in a very difficult language. If I just made that question into discuss the caves which represent religious tolerance in India, you would have written that answer. But I have just changed the wording to a little bit more indirect, and then you are struggling to write the answer. That is not the way you have to go forward. Try to use your mind, try to see the implied logic, try to see the implied concept itself. I am telling you about this, please be very clear about it. Can I now start mural traditions? Mural, and then we go to Mughal. The most important thematic here is Mughal paintings only. All of the questions are coming from that area. All of the questions are coming from that area. Okay. All the kings who followed different religion than they patronize the figures of different religions also represent. Yes, but Priyanka, it's specific to the concept of cave. That is why you have to be about very specific about caves in that regard. In the introduction, you are going to write about how ancient India is generally about syncretism, about tolerance. Cave architecture is an expression of that. Okay. Now there would be two words which you would have heard about it: mural and fresco. So first, you need to understand what's the difference between these two things. See, cave architecture is a very specific type of architecture, which is cave paintings is a specific type of paintings, which is petroglyphs, which is you do paintings into a cave and that becomes a petroglyph in that regard. In that context, the canvas is also natural, the colors are also natural. There's no conscious choice to do something to the cave in that regard. But mural is a concept of painting which is to paint on any big surface is called mural. So it could be one big wall, it could be the ceiling, it could be any big surface. Murals are paintings done on artificial or man-made surfaces, and mostly murals can be big, small. There's no specific rule about it. So please understand one thing: mural is different, cave painting is different. That would be the biggest blunder you will do in the examination, wherein you will see these two things separately. Which is, you have to make sure that you don't, if they ask you a question on murals, start from cave. Don't do that. Prehistoric cave architecture and cave paintings are different. Murals are different. Murals mostly we start to find from the period in which we get Maurya, post Maurya, which is again the period of cave architecture. These caves which we discussed, if you add these ones, you will get proper cave painting and architecture together. Mural is any painting done on an artificial or man-made surface, could be big or small. What is the difference between petroglyph and mural? Question mark, question mark, question mark. The answer to that question I'm giving you right now itself. Petroglyphs are done by prehistoric people. By what is the point of teaching you ancient if you don't know the difference between prehistory and historical? Petroglyph is done in the prehistoric period in caves which were not man-made but naturally forming, and Bhimbetka Lakhudiyar are caves in which we find images. These images are made by prehistoric man before language existed. Murals comes in a tradition where these caves are mostly man-made. They are either chaitya, vihara, or a specific cave made for paintings itself. And there's a certain expression on a wall. It could be big or small. Cave painting is different. Mural is different. That's why the word I'm using, petroglyph, is only used for prehistoric period. Can we be clear about this distinction? Then only I move forward, because I have to discuss what is a fresco and a mural. Half of the students lose the plot there only. During IVC, there were lots of craftsmen and pottery that man made. It is called mural. No. अरे यार pottery को mural बुला रहे हो? How? Try to understand something. You are trying to compare these two things together. This is a phone, this is a remote. Both look the same but don't have same purpose. Petroglyphs are done in caves. petroglyphs are done in caves. First, they are cave paintings. Mural on pottery, that is pottery decoration. So what you are doing is you are confusing yourself also, you're confusing others also. Cave painting is cave painting, petroglyph, prehistoric period. If I have to teach you what is prehistoric, then you have to watch the video, go back and check what I mean by prehistoric. Second is decoration is not mural. Mural is anything done on a big surface. It is an artificial or man-made surface done with a specific thing of paintings. You are acting like that you have never seen a painting or you've never seen a mural. All the graffiti which you see on your college and what we call as different parts of the city, they are called murals. Murals are done on big surfaces. So you don't say to it that the cave painting hai, that this is pottery painting. Have you ever seen a wall and said to it, ye pottery paint kar rakha hai, that they have painted on pottery? Mural is when it's a big surface. Proper painting. Can I move on from this? Does not even need that much explanation. Now, the two words mural, fresco. A painting on a big surface is a mural, yes. Like a wall, ceiling, whatever it is. Now, mural is the bigger term and fresco is a subtype of mural. Fresco is a subtype of mural. The difference between the two is how you do it. How you do it. Mostly what happens is in mural, the surface is already finished and the mural is done after the wall has been made. Basically, I have a wall, I plastered it, I made it smooth, I painted it. Now I make a certain figure on it. That is a mural. Fresco is a specific type of mural in which I made the wall. I made the wall with bricks. Now I can't paint on this. So what I do is I take my paint, I take my plaster and start to apply plaster on this. Start to apply plaster on this. Now the point is that the plaster is still being applied. The plaster is still being applied, a form of cement or whatever you want to call it, that I'm still giving it its coat. But now whilst the plaster is still wet, I draw my painting here. So basically when it's a wet surface, water soluble color is used. Color is used. And what happens is that the color gets binded to the surface, because the plaster will absorb the water of the color also. So which painting will survive for a longer period? A mural or a fresco? A fresco. Within the murals, frescoes survive for a much longer period because they are done when the surface is being prepared. And when they are getting prepared, the aspect here is very simple, which is that whilst preparation they use water soluble colors, and the water gets absorbed into the wall, and therefore it becomes more permanent in that sense. So murals may not survive over a period of time. Frescoes do. Frescoes do because they are basically like the part of the paint or the plaster itself. So mural is mostly on finished surfaces, or a fresco is also a mural, but a mural when it is done on an unfinished wall, wet plaster, it is called a fresco. So this is the bigger term, this is a specific term. Can I now talk about cave murals, or murals which have come in India? It's a technique within murals. Yes. Okay. All frescoes are murals, but not all murals are frescoes. Yes. Now, the if you have to complicate something, I should give it to you. Make it completely complicated and give it back to me. But yes, what you said is totally right. Simple concept, complicated. Okay. Now, cave paintings, cave murals. अरे murals कर देते हैं. तो confused हो जाओ. Get confused. Now, Ajanta is the first such place. I told you I'll come back to Ajanta. Ajanta is the first such place where we find one of the oldest murals in India. And these murals mostly belong to the Buddhist, or all of them are Buddhist because it is a set of Buddhist caves itself. Certain were made initially, later were maybe more or less after the Gupta period. But it is not that nothing was made throughout it. Throughout, from Shunga to Gupta, we get mural, fresco both. And we have multiple important bodhisattvas who are represented. Vajrapani, Manjushri, and Bodhisattva Padampani Avalokeshwar all have been represented in different caves. Now, please understand this point. There are two types of discussion I will have with you. One is factual, and the second one is to explain something to you. Unfortunately, you do not have the luxury of showing the paintings to the examiner. So obviously, you can't talk about them in that context. But what I want from you is that you understand it. That you understand it. If you will understand it, it may be that you will be able to answer mains questions also if asked. So this is the basic things for prelims examination. 29 caves, some in Shunga, some in Gupta, who are represented Vajrapani, Manjushri, and you have the other Bodhisattva Padampani. I will discuss that with you. But I want to show you them also. I could have done this topic within half an hour easily. This and Mughal painting itself, half an hour the topic is there. This is. But I have categorically brought images for you so that you can understand what I mean. So I hope that you understand that the purpose of this lecture is going to be twofold. Like last time where I made you architects, here I'm making you painters, and you will understand things. And if you will understand things, maybe it will stick with you. I hope you understand the concept and the effort here. The effort is not to just tell you this, okay, this. I'm trying to basically give you an understanding. Confused between paintings protected in Bhimbetka, Ajanta caves. That is a separate issue altogether. Kishan, I have no idea how you are messing that up. Bhimbetka are natural caves made by prehistoric painters. The problem is you don't know the difference between prehistoric and historic. That is made by early men with very early tools, and it is made on surfaces which were not prepared. There was not man-made surfaces. Ajanta, most of the surfaces were prepared with plaster. If you still can't understand it, then you have to understand the difference between prehistory and history. That's the only point. Can I start the discussion? And as you will see these paintings, this is why I show the paintings. Because for some of you, those both things are the same thing. Do we have to remember paintings in each cave? Yes, Pooja has been asked previously that Bodhisattva Padampani's painting has been found where? Okay. Now, dying princess is going to be dying princess is reference to Bodhisattva Tara. Okay. Now, mural means wall painting. Ha bhai. UPSC is not asking you to remember same many places. Ajanta we've been twice. Now, Ajanta paintings have 3 to 4 issues and 3 to 4 characteristics. This is the image of Bodhisattva Padampani. This is the most celebrated Bodhisattva, which is Avalokeshwar, and he's called Padampani because he holds the lotus in his hand. And thereafter you have Manjushri. Now, if you look at the paintings itself, you will realize a certain pattern is emerging. From Avalokeshwar to Manjushri to the what we call as Vajrapani, we have different references. First things first is called cluttering. Now here, what I'm doing with you, this is totally out of the syllabus. This is not what you have to understand. You just have to know the characteristic. So there is an issue of cluttering. Cluttering means you can see it is extremely hodgepodge. They've tried to push as much as possible into the same image. And that cluttering comes out because borders are not made. Called absence of border. Absence of borders. Now, the other issue is that I don't know you can make it out or not. But what is this? What is this? This is a horse. Now, horse is looking as big as this woman. But that can't be. So the issue of scale comes. The issue of scale comes. That they have made it in such a way that scaling issue is becoming very common. Is becoming very common in the sense that the problem is they've cluttered it too much in that regard that they're not able to create the right picture. So there's a lot they're trying to do here, surely, but they are cluttering the image too much. They are cluttering the image too much. And if you look at it, there's one more very interesting thing, which is that it has a very important characteristic, which is dark colors. It's called dark colors, wherein they are basically trying to represent dark brown colors. This is a Jataka image. It's a story from the Jatakas. It's a Jatak image. It's called the Jatak story. The exact name of this would be the Mahajataka Jataka. This is basically a Jatak tale in which the horse is involved. We don't have to. This is cave number 17. This is cave number 17. I'm not giving you these things because you will start to learn it. Cave number 17, Jataka image, from coming from Ajanta itself. Now, two issues I've pointed out to you: issue of scale, issue of cluttering, and third, brown dark color. This is mostly the issue which you will find in Ajanta because they will push too much together. But if you go to individual images, for example, this is Avalokeshwar or Lokeshwar, rather let me write his real name, Bodhi Sattva Padam Pani. If you have Upinder Singh, or if you've ever seen the book Upinder Singh, this is on the front page itself. Bodhisattva Padam Pani or Lokeshwara or Avalokeshwara. Now, there are certain things which will come out if you go a little bit in depth. This is called the Buddhist half closed eyes. Buddhist closed eyes. And the interesting thing is this shows meditative and spiritual understanding. There's one more interesting thing which is very elaborate headgear. Would I call this image naturalistic or stylistic? Very good. It's a stylistic image. Multiple ways of ornamentation of that image. And if I go to Manjushri, the fact of the matter becomes even more interesting. Manjushri gives us an example of one very interesting characteristic. One very, very interesting characteristics. Can anybody tell me that characteristic? Come on, tell me. It's in front of you. It's a very interesting characteristic, which will again become something common throughout the Ajanta, throughout the Buddhist tradition. Yes, very good. It's called the protruding lips. Or we call pouting lips. The half closed eyes are there, sure. We have headgear also. But this is the next thing which comes in. Which is the fact that this will become a very common thing, which is to have very heavy lips in that regard. And the brown color, the subdued color scheme has now become a standard thing. So the problem is that again bordering is not there, and when you don't make a border, you get this. A lot of cluttering, scale issue is there, absence of bordering, dark brown color, headgear, protruding lips, and half closed eyes. Now, tell me one thing. If there's an artist who is Buddhist, this would then be his hallmark. That everywhere he will go, he will do the same thing. Now, this is the beauty of medieval India, of ancient India, that because the painters did not have any specific preference of religion, in Jain images also you will find the same characteristics. So if you go to Ellora, in the Kailasha temple, and cave number, in 5 caves we find murals, but on the ceiling. This is ceiling murals. And on them, we have what we call as the Apsara images. And the Apsara image, if you will see very closely, again, the issues are same. Very dark colors, cluttering, no bordering. This tells us what? This indicates us what? If the same thing is coming over and over again, then what is the issue? Same painter, very good, or same painting tradition, which means that the people had a certain choice, and that choice was based on this understanding. And what is ironical is that you will see it will become more and more ubiquitous. For example, Ajanta Ellora is very obvious. But if you go to Bagh caves, which is again very late to Ajanta, they have in cave number 4 what is called the Rang Mahal. Now, for the first time, what we see is that the painter is the same, but he has done something. He has removed one of the issues of one of these. Don't have to learn the cave numbers. One of the issues of Ajanta. Color scheme is same, but he has finally brought in bordering. We know that it's the same person because of the standard eyes and protruding lips itself. But now you see, as soon as you bring in scale, as soon as you bring in bordering, out of these women, one, one, two, three, and four, can you make out that which woman is in the front and which woman is the back? Which one is in the most front? One, the blue one. That we are able to make out because finally we were able to see the edge. Now you see how with bordering, depth comes in a little bit. So you see, through a period of time, same painter is developing and evolving the concept itself. Thereafter, you have two cave sets for which I've not found images itself. One is called the Arnamalai cave paintings, which were done for Jain saints in the Vellore district of Tamil Nadu. These are natural caves. These are natural caves which are basically made for the resting. They are viharas. And we have a wall which depicts the Ashtadik Palatakas, which basically are the 8 protecting deities of Jainism. Now, if you live in this area or have ever, if you know Arnamalai caves where they are, I have not got the images online. If you live close to them, sure, a little bit inside the forest, don't have to go there. If you do get images, do send it to me. If you live in that sector, if you don't, not an issue. You'll not find images online for this. Then one which was in the news itself, which is Setan Vansal. Setan Vansal caves are Jain caves which date to the Pandya period. And Setan Vansal caves have again multiple Jain related imagery from the preaching hall scheme, which is called Samava Sandra. And they also have bull, elephant, apsaras, and multiple representations. Setan Vansal, again, if you look at the image, you will realize that it is a Jain cave. But is it having different imagery? So I hope now you understand the importance of these images. Now you understand the importance of these images. I could not have told you this or actually have taught you this without showing the images. They're Jain caves because they have been donated to Jains. It has been donated to Jains itself. Now, The first set, Sitan Vansal, Arnamalai, Pag, Ajanta, Ellora, are Buddhist Jain. But when you go to Lepakshi, now you are in the Hinduistic zone, because this is the Vijayanagara period. The Veerbhadra temple in Lepakshi on the border of Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh. This is a very beautiful place because it has the Ramayana and Mahabharata, and even different gods represented on the ceiling, again on the ceiling. And now the representation has changed. You can automatically make out. By what can you make out that this is not Buddhist or Jain caves or murals? By what? First is the color scheme, and the biggest giveaway is the open eyes. The eyes are totally different, which means that the painters are different. But what Lepakshi is known for? What Lepakshi is known for is the concept of absence of primary colors. Absence of primary colors, specifically blue. Blue, red, and green are considered the three RGB are considered the three primary colors. Blue is actually very rare in this. So in the examination, if you find a description where it says absence of primary colors blue, then please make sure that you mark Lepakshi. How is it that paintings did not vanish till today? Because these are frescoes. These are frescoes. They are in very bad shape if you look at it. They have been made in areas which are not exposed to water. What is the biggest enemy of paintings is moisture. And the fact of the matter is, they are not in. I've seen them myself. Lepakshi, I've gone to Lepakshi. I've seen them. They're not in very good shape. But the fact is that they have survived because they are frescoes. If most of the murals don't survive, because the wall itself has taken the color itself, it has survived in that sense. So Lepakshi, in that sense, if you ever get a chance, or you can watch videos of Lepakshi very beautifully in the whole temple, Veerbhadra temple, all of it. You will actually, if I don't tell you that there are frescoes, you will not even realize it. You'll go straight away into the Garbhagriha. It is on the exit of the Garbhagriha. The mandap has, the whole ceiling has everything. So moisture is not a good friend, and they've survived over a period of time because they're frescoes. Then you have Badami caves of Karnataka. Now I'll just show you the image. Can anybody tell me, is Badami cave related to Buddhism, Jainism? So now you basically become a painting specialist. Now just by looking at a painting, you can figure out which period it is being pushed into. So Bagh and Ajanta tradition taken forward in Badami. Figures are graceful and compassionate, half-closed eyes and protruding lips. Chalukya kings, Jain monks, and other things are shown. You have now Buddhist and Jain plus Hinduistic imagery. But what we find the most is actually Jain plus Buddhist. But because the images are showing the standard things, Buddhist influence is there. So before I go to Pala and Apabhransha, which is totally different period, I have done a certain number of caves with you. One second. Ellora, Ajanta, Bagh, Badami are related to each other. Lepakshi is one standalone. Arnamalai, Sitan Vansal is one set. Does anybody have any issue here? Jain, Hinduistic. What type of question can come? Sitan Vansal, it said match the following: Sitan Vansal Jain caves or Jain imagery. Or they can ask you, the basic characteristics of Buddhist and Jain cave imagery or murals in that regard, which I've already gave you half closed eyes, this and that, the standard things. Are we clear about this? Because then I tell you two different, which is Pala, because that imagery will totally change, and then Apabhransha, which is the closest to what we do today. Why Hinduistic caves are less? Because Hindus made more temples. Temple architecture is more common. Now, now we go to Pala. If you remember, I told you that Pala will do in two contexts. What is the contribution of Palas in the architecture zone? What is the contribution in architecture? Very good. They are known for the sloping roof, slanting roof of Bengal. They are also known for the fact that they were the ones who kept Buddhist architecture alive, and the aspect related to red bricks and burnt bricks, which is very common in cave in Buddhist architecture. Very good. Now, Palas, because they are Buddhists, again, Vajrayanic Buddhism is something which gets a lot of push by the Palas. But the Palas did not do murals. The Palas did not do murals. They did what are called Pothi art. In your life, you would have for sure seen, if haven't seen, you'd have seen something like this in front with a lot of these pandits, which are called Pothis. Have you seen this? These are palm leaf pothis. If by mistake, unfortunately by mistake, or you had nothing to do, if you've seen the movie Ram Setu, the whole pretext is based on that pothi tradition. That there were pothis, which were made. These are basically called old books. Old books were not done on paper. In north it was done in palm leaves, and in south it was done on vellum paper. So vellum pothis were very common in south, and you have palm leaves, which is very common in north. Now, looking at this image, this is a pothi. You can see the decorative pattern. There is what we call as abahata written on the both sides, which is the precursor of Bengali. Guess who this image is of? Guess. Knowing that it is Vajrayanic Buddhism. Very good. Perfect. This is now I hope you realize the importance of knowing ancient and medieval. This is Tara. Tara is the principal god in or bodhisattva in Vajrayanic Buddhism. And you can see that now there is the aspect of Tantra, Mantra, and magic, which is the concept of Vajrayanic Buddhism. So, very simply, composition are simple, no group depiction, not a very big depiction. Two very important painters were there, Dhimman and Vitapal, and red color is used quite a lot in backgrounds. You can see red quite a lot. Now, during the medieval period, before Delhi Sultanate is not known for painting, I will tell you, but during that period, Delhi Sultanate period, there was one tradition which was there in the Gujarat sector, Rajasthan Gujarat sector, which is called the Apabhransham School of Art. Gujarat Mewar region, 11th to 15th century. This is called Jain Vaishnavite imagery, meaning again Vishnu and Gita Govinda. There were different kathas which were written, and these kathas had images along with them. Now, as soon as you will see, you will automatically realize that this is more Hinduistic imagery. The first most interesting thing which comes out is the very generous use of gold. Golden color, generous, very generous use. Second, the Apabhransham school is known for, as you can see, the issue of scale. Issue of scale and depth. They are not able to figure out how to make the things look in the background. They are also known for what we call as today fish eyes. fish eyes. Eyes very, very big fish eyes. And they are also known for very sharp nose and then the iconic double chin. The iconic double chin and sharp nose. This is basically the reason why Apramshan school is very quickly caught, because you will find these things later also. But you can see that the color scheme has totally changed, and the aspects are fish bulging eyes, pointed nose, double chin, angular faces, but the colors become brighter. So as you can see, we are moving away from Buddhism. The more the colors become brighter, because in Hinduistic imagery it is more bright and bright, and that is something common. Now, before I go to medieval, I have discussed with you Upper Brahmsa and Pala. Anybody has any issue in what is written on the screen? I'll give you a breather if you want 5 minutes, because then I want your attention for the next 45 minutes. If you want a breather. Summarization is very straightforward. Petroglyphs, mural have a certain connection. You just have to know the basic characteristics, and you need to know which period they are belonging to. That is the standard question which will come in the examination. Yes. Sitan Vansal, as I told you, Jain caves, Pandya period have a very strong Buddhist imagery, but are Jain caves. Okay, so we take a breather here. We come back at 8:45. Last 45 minutes, then I want a lot of character from you, right? So we'll be back at 8:45. Okay, now there's a major issue in medieval India. What is the issue? That you will not find a lot of paintings in medieval India? You already know it. Not arabesque. Has nothing to do with arabesque. Islam does not allow human and animal figures. I don't know what you started to write. Monumentality, destroying architecture, this and that. Simple point. For paintings, you have to represent something. And Islam does not allow it. So what happens is that Delhi Sultanate, the rulers were very strict about this. We have no real painting tradition except for one book which is called Niyamat Nama, which is a cookery book. Nothing really. And when we talk about Mughal, for the same reason, mural tradition dies, but miniature paintings remain. Miniature means small, close to my palm. You will get miniature paintings. Now you will say that how can the Mughals do it? I tell you, you go and say to Akbar that he can't make paintings. I give you the time machine. I give you the resources. Go and say to Akbar, Aurangzeb, Shah Jahan, Jahangir that you, the Mughal emperor, cannot do things which are un-Islamic. So most probably that time machine is going to come empty because you don't tell emperors what they can do and not do. So Delhi Sultanate rulers were very clear about this, that they did not want anything generally. Mughal rulers, as always, were very clear that they wanted something as a representation. India had a very beautiful tradition, and they will start that. Now, for the same reason, Delhi Sultanate, we only have something called the Lodi Khuladhar style and one book called Niyamat Nama, which is a book on cookery, which tells us how things were made, nothing more, nothing less. And Niyamat Nama, in that sense, had multiple very interesting images. It told us how to make what. For example, this is a very famous representation of a very important snack which we all eat today. Can anybody tell you? Can anybody tell me what is it? What is the this snack which they are serving? Yes, this is the samosa. The samosa. This is the whole concept under which how the samosa is made is actually shown. Is actually shown, and you can already see that they have an issue of depth. They are showing something 2D, something 3D in 2D. So this is actually should be like this, but it is showing like this. Same way, this is what you have known kahava. 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 The way of making certain type of tea out of certain things. So the fact is that they are representing, there's an issue of scale, but you can't expect too much out of them. They don't have a tradition in that regard. It will be rather be the Mughals who will do something much, much greater. Now, when we talk about Mughal paintings generally, we know that Babar did not have a lot of time, did not have the stability, except for one small family tree through which we already know how Babar is related to Timur and how is related to Genghis Khan, which was made by an artist called Bizhat. mostly Mughal paintings are very subdued initially. And Humayun, he didn't like paintings initially, and I'll give you a table in the end, so don't worry. He didn't like paintings that much, but when he ran away from India and went to the Safavid Empire, he fell in love with painting there because he had nothing to do as it is. He used to drink too much and then paint. And when he will come back to India, he will be the first person who will bring two painting masters from Persia or from Iran. Name Mir Sayyid Ali and Abdul Samad has come in the examination previously. And Humayun has been credited of creating the first atelier or painting studio in India. You would have known that if you go to your school, in your school there would be an art class. In art class, that whole setup would be there. Bowl of fruits would be there, and people would be sitting around it. That's called an atelier setup. Atelier is the concept of a studio, painting studio, where you look at something and paint. So Humayun is the first person to do it for the first time. And he will do it, he will make this, he will set this up in Agra, but again will not be able to use it for a long time. The only thing which he will commission means that he gave money to make, was a painting called the Princess of the House of Timur, and it was not done on a hard surface but on a tent wall. He wanted, it's a very interesting image, which is he wanted to basically have an image of Central Asia and of India on his paint, on his tent wall or tent, what we call as side, when he could see it. It's called the Princess of the House of Timur because it represents the princes Humayun, Timur, and Babar. And it's very unusual to have a very big painting like this. This is basically, for example, it's on cloth. It's like a mural in that sense, and we only have this much surviving out of it. You can see that there is a lot of interesting elements in this, very interesting elements in this. Now, first you can see the issue of scale. How can a man be as big as a pavilion? The blue color of Central Asia, which is quite common, their obsession with blue is there. And though there is a little bit of less cluttering, the tree representation, the color of the trees and representation is again very Central Asian. So though it was made by Humayun, it is not true representation of Indian tradition. Now it will be his son Akbar who will become the first one to institutionalize. Please remember this. This comes in the examination. Discuss the contribution of the Mughal sultans or Mughal emperors to painting tradition in India. Standard question. Akbar was the first one to institutionalize painting tradition in India, because what he will do is that he will set up what are called karkhanas. He will set up studios in which he will have people employed as painters. So he was the first one to give royal service to painters. And the biggest point is most of his painters were Hindu and lower caste. So he was the one who started to pay attention to the concept of paintings. He was taught by Abdul Samad. This is a different person. That was Us. Abdul Samad. And he will be the one who will bring in new influences which were coming, not that much European, but internal. Established an workshop which had calligraphers, paper makers, gliders, illustrators, binders. One one painting could need at least 7 people to work on it. And he will also be the one and I will show you these images later. First, who will give Hindus a lot of place in his what we call as ateliers. And most of them were lower caste. Example, Daswant is a very good example, very celebrated, very celebrated artist of Akbar, but was coming from a lower caste background, salaried employees. But now when we come to Akbar is a person who loves what we call as illustrated paintings. He is the one who basically wants comic books. Whilst he was a child, he had heard two very important stories. One is called Tuti Nama and the other one is called Hamza Nama. Tuti Nama is the story of a parrot telling the tale, Tuti Nama, and Hamza Nama is the story of the uncle of Prophet Muhammad, which is Amir Hamza. Now, what he wanted was that the whole Tuti Nama should be made into a comic book, that he looks at these miniature paintings and he can see the whole Tuti Nama. Basically, there's no movie and there's no Netflix. So it's basically asking them to animate for him everything. Animate for him everything. So Tales of a Parrot, 52 parts. Now you see, 250 miniature paintings were made, and it will take close to 5 years to make. And Tuti Nama, once completed, will be the first illustrative painting tradition based narrative painting. Narrative paintings mean that they narrate something. Now, if they're making five, and he's illiterate, obviously, if he's making five, then or rather he's making 250 in 5 years. How many paintings in in 1 year? Puneet, your question does not deserve to be pushed. 50. So every week they were making one painting. Every week they were making one painting. And very simply, you see how much effort it takes to make one painting. Now, if we analyze Tuti Nama or Hamza Nama, this is the second one, this is called the Hamza Nama. The second one, called Hamza Nama, narrates the legend of Amir Hamza, the uncle of Prophet Muhammad. This is 14 volumes, 1400 paintings. Began in 1562, and the Tasweer Khana was specifically made for it. What I'm trying to tell you is that Akbar, the scale of illustrations is at the next level altogether. 1400 this, 250 that, 2000, close to 2000 images being made. And he was obsessed with this concept that he can see certain things through paintings. He's made it into a proper profession, and he's made most of his painters are Hindus. Now, if I analyze his paintings in Nitin Singhania, it will say that, and I can quote it and I know it, it will say that Akbar's paintings had 3Dness, or Akbar's painting had depth. This would be written somewhere in randomly, but with the problem is that when we talk about Akbar, 3Dness is not there. If it's not worthy question, it Puneet, no. But stop giving me this British type of understanding. 3D, if there would be proof, you would be giving that with proof. It's not true. It's randomly made facts. 3Dness is not there. Issue of scale and depth both is there. And I'll show you. See, this house, if you look at the corner, it is not correct. It is not correct. It should have been somewhere like this. So rather, if you see this corner is crooked, this corner is crooked. What it will become more common is scale. You see scale. This person is equal to one whole story of the building itself. One whole story of the building itself. Though the images are very beautifully made and there's a very strong Rajasthani color scheme or color scheme influence. When we look at Akbar, his images mostly lack that. You can see whole person as big as one floor. This person is bigger than two people. And if that is not enough, you see here, this is the 3Dness, no 3Dness. No 3Dness. Are you seeing how the building has been made crooked? How the building has been made crooked. Rather than making it straight, 3Dness and depth is lacking. Though they have a lot of very interesting color scheme, the upbrancham gold is used quite a lot, blue is there. But the problem is that they are not able to figure out. You can see here also, they're not able to figure out how to keep the different aspects together. And the biggest example of Akbar's cluttering and 2Dness is this. This is called cluttering. Multi-point perspective. There's one perspective here, there's one perspective here, there's one perspective here, there's one perspective. It's literally cluttering based concept. He wanted narration, so there's too much narration. But this is the testimony to 2Dness and not 3Dness. This is a portrait of Akbar, and I'll show you a portrait of Akbar which was made later. If you look at it, if when you make feet, you never make. Do you stand like this? When you stand, do you stand like this? Your one feet in front of your next feet? No. The feet should have been made something like this. This is 3Dness. This is the front, this is the back. Rather than they doing this. So I think I have successfully showed to you that if Nitin Singhania has written, for example, 2Dness, 3Dness in the perspective, it is not. Multi-point perspective means too many things are there. One perspective is this, one perspective is this, one perspective is this. So it clearly proves that it is Jahangir who will introduce 3Dness, not Akbar. Are we clear about this? Are we clear about this? Why is it cluttering? Though there is bordering, but he wants too much to happen. Now comes our friend Jahangir. Jahangir is the most important personality when it comes to painting. Most important. He will take painting to the zenith, and he is the one who will do three things: 3Dness, single point perspective, and depth. All three will be resolved. But he has other things also related to him. For example, European influence will increase further from narrative paintings to portrait paintings. Meaning that he did not want narration, he wanted only single portraits. So he will have his own art layer other than Akbar. He is a keen naturalist. He is a naturalist. Naturalist means that he loved to make birds and flowers. And the most expensive Mughal paintings today are till the realistic, naturalistic paintings made by Jahangir and his painters. Narrative paintings were gone, individual portraits were there. Brushwork is finer and very, very light. And Jahangir may have his Jahangir Nama, his autobiography written in which he will add as many paintings as possible. There will be bordering of the painting, and I will show you Jahangir will become obsessed with something. You see that you have very beautiful borders. He now has a single point perspective. This is called single point perspective. Single point perspective. You are not trying to look at this animal from three different sides, only one side. But you can see that the issues related to depth have been resolved. He's made very very light colored paintings, very beautiful representation. And he will generously decorate the border. European influence is something which will dominate Jahangir, which I will tell you and I will show you. Now, he's breaking the ulama's rules. Obviously, he's making animals, but he loves animals. Now, three things. Jahangir, if you remember, is the one who gave the farmans to the British, 1613, 1615. And the British gave him two things: one, an hourglass, a globe, and spectacles. And they will give him portraits of their kings. And now Jahangir will say that I want portraits made like this. He will now add a lot of elements which were there in the British period and the British, what we call as British type, English type, European type imagery. And Jahangir will become obsessed with the globe itself. The name Jahangir means the person who rules the world. Jahangir, Jahan ko pakad ke rakhne wala. Now you see how he will literally make that happen. First things first, this is Jahangir's portrait. Now you tell me, does it have 3D or not? Does it have 3Dness? Which shoulder is in the front? One or two? One. Because he's basically standing like this, and you can figure it out that his one shoulder is in front of the other. Then you can see a halo. This is something which is called divine power imagery. That he was no one else but God himself. Like our gods have it in their back, halo. This is the aura of Jahangir. Now you see how he is brought in European elements, European angels. And he is now also using animal imagery. And you see how the halo has been made into this. Halo is actually picked up from the Rajputs. Rajputs have this Suryavanshi, this Chandravanshi, this very big halo concept in that regard. So you look at the imagery, it has changed. He's showing that how he is the sleeping tiger. He now knows how the globe looks like. So what is Jahangir doing? Jahangir is standing on the globe, Jahan ka Gir, and he is hugging a Central Asian ruler who is basically a goat. Means that he is weak, but the tiger is not eating the goat; he is helping the goat. This is the type of imagery he is showing, which is a certain type of understanding. But the obsession with the globe will go to a next level altogether. Now you see, Jahan ka Gir, Jahangir standing on a globe with his angels holding the bow and arrow, and the concept of royal insignia, which he never knew about, which is a very European thing, has now been shown. Further, Jahangir holding Jahan, he's holding the earth. So Jahangir holding the Jahan. Now you should see the legs. And you tell me, where have you seen this gold color? Where have you seen this gold color? Yes, this is the Apabhransham gold, very bright gold color which Jahangir used to use. And you see, hourglass. And there's a person here. Guess who he is? Ye kaun hai? Who's this? He doesn't look like an Indian. Does not look like an Indian. Yes, that is Thomas Rowe. Rowe or Hawkins, but we believe it is Rowe. Again, you can see the angels. You can see the halo. But the you can see one thing, there's no cluttering, individual, there's not trying to depict anything, it's not trying to narrate anything, it's just a painting. But the zenith of Mughal painting is shown in this. Royal insignia means a symbol which represents the crown. Now, the zenith of Mughal paintings is in this painting. Guess who's in the portrait he's holding? That is Akbar. So basically, hourglass is used for time. This is called the epitome of 3Dness, depth. He is now holding an image in his hand, and that image also has the right side of depth. Now the Jahan is not held by him but by his father. You see how halo is still there, depth is there, depth is there in Akbar's painting, halo is here again. But you see that you can see that he is looking at the image. He's looking at the image. And we know that this hand and this hand, this is front hand, this is back hand. Coming from where Akbar started, you see, can we say that yes, Jahangir did take it to the next level? And this is, and again, see, this is why this chapter makes no sense to most of the students, because you don't do it through imagery, you do it through words written in Nitin Singhania. If you actually start to look at it, now what I'm trying to create is a certain visual memory in your mind. Certain visual memory in your mind, so that next time when somebody says Jahangir painting, these 4 or 5 images should come into your mind. And I hope that I'm being able to do that, or I'm trying to do it and it is working. That you are now having some reference point to this, because this chapter is not more than 30 minutes. But I'm trying to analyze paintings with you because I want you to see how this tradition, this is your culture, this is Indian culture, this is the beauty of Indian painting tradition. Now Shah Jahan knows how to waste money. Shah Jahan knows how to waste money. He said, painting na आंख पे लग नहीं रहे, चौंधिया नहीं रहे. Do one thing, add gold to the painting. So what he said was, on the borders, he started to add gold leaf. He said कि मतलब आंखों, it should glitter like anything. So he knew how to waste money. So he did it. Paintings were fine. He said gold laga us pe. Put gold on it. Now you see, Shah Jahan, he's known for Taj Mahal and all, known for wasting money. Portraits, albums will become very common. Superimposition of animals, scenes of acrobats. I will show you all these things, very European elements. He has his very important word called Padshanama, lavishly and generously gold plated in that regard. And Padshanama had even portraits of servants. Now, in this image, you will see two things. See, firstly, if you're saying that the feet are not showing depth, there's a problem. It is showing depth because this is the front, this is the back. You can make that out. What is more important is, you see, the acrobats are still there. This is Rajasthani Jali work. The halo is now part of the sky itself. How are you saying there's no depth? Because you can make out that this is the Yamuna, and you can make out that is the forest in the back. So you have a arabesque, and you have the coloring is very Rajasthani coloring, Rajasthani pink color use. And Shah Jahan did not add to anything, but he took it forward. The flying baby is called an angel. You see it everywhere. Flying baby, flying baby. That is called an angel. Angel. Now, now, the most celebrated imagery are these two. This is the passing of Shah Jahan dying, and this is Aurangzeb's wife. Now, Aurangzeb did not like representation a lot of things, but if your wife says something, you have to do it. So her wife said that I want an image made of me. But you see that this is a pure Western stance of portrait making, meaning that she is looking outwards. If you look at it, everyone is looking sideways, sideways, sideways. You see sideways. But now the portrait has been made by while she looking outwards. It's a very European thing, very very European thing. But why do I call this image as the epitome of Mughal imagery, which was done by Jahanara, which was given by Jahanara? You see, in the back, you can see Taj Mahal. You can see Peter Dury. You can see the moon peeping out. 1, 2, 3. Which pillar is in the back? Which is in the back? 2. You can make that out also. You have the tribeted pillar structure. And the obsession, marna bhi chahta tha, he wanted to die with marble around him. So what I want to say, this is Aurangzeb's wife. That is the last painting made of Shah Jahan dying. From where they started and where they are. In this image, why do I say that it is an epitome? Because it brings both architecture and painting together. It brings architecture and painting together. The 3D-ness of it. You can see the two biggest epitomes, all epitomes of architecture. Taj Mahal, Peter Dury, marble use, arabesque, Shah Jahan, and painting tradition being able to do it. So an inside of the pillar and the outside of the pillar is also there. Girl near Shah Jahan is Mumtaz. No. That is Jahanara, daughter. Jahanara, Roshanara, Gohara. 3 daughters, 4 sons. And one of the sons was Aurangzeb. Now, Aurangzeb, nothing really he added as always standard. He did not do anything. But what he did was that he decommissioned all the painters. And when he decommissioned these painters, what happened was that these painters went to the Rajputs. And now, in the late Aurangzeb period, Rajasthani school of architecture emerges. And under Rajasthani school of architecture, Mughal painters were now making Rajasthani. But you tell me, in Hinduism, is there a debar on making murals, big paintings? No. So now we come back to full circle. Mural, miniature, mural. And now each of these painters will add to the Rajput painting, which is beautiful colors, generous use of gold, big murals, love, Mahabharata, Ramayana, fables. These things will be made. And now you will start to get very interesting images. For example, from the Amber and Jaipur school, which has a very strong Mughal influence, you get this image. This is a corner of the fort, and this is no one else but Lord Ganesha. And therefore, you see how the basic standard concepts come through, which is now they're painting arabesque. This is arabesque. They are painting on walls. A whole wall of this fort is Lord Ganesha. And you can see from the color scheme, this mural is very Mughal oriented. Because the painter was previously employed by Shah Jahan, now has been left. And it cannot be a beautiful expression that a squinch and an arch is being used to decorate. So we'll do Madhubani and all is folk painting. Separate topic, we'll do it separately. Thereafter comes Bikaner school. Bikaner school, you see this. Can anybody tell me what image is this? What image is this? This is Lord Krishna Govardhan Parvat scene. Now you see how beautiful the imagery is. The facial expression and the facial representation is totally Mughal. Color scheme is a little bit different. But you see how Lord Indra is shown, how Govardhan Parvat, there's a certain elegance in the sky. And further, here there is multi-point perspective. One perspective here, one perspective here, one perspective here, one perspective here, one perspective here. Where have we seen multi-point perspective? Where have we seen multi-point perspective? This is Bikaner. Bikaner. This is Jaipur. Jaipur. Akbar. And then if you go to Bundi and Kota Kalam school, you get an image which you've already seen. This is Bundi Kota. Where have we seen this image of a person holding a person's portrait? Very good. Now this is the precursor. This is the inspiration. Akbar holding Jahangir or Jahangir holding Akbar. Now you see that they have such good expertise that it's a mirror now. Mirror shows that there is a European element here, because mirrors became very common with the coming up of the Europeans. And you can see that the representation is similar. The way she's looking at herself is similar in both images. And I think after showing you so many things, you would be able to make out that this is a Mughal inspired painting. After showing you so many Mughal paintings, now the epitome comes from Kishangarh. And I will not disrespect the painting by calling it the Mona Lisa of India. I will rather call Mona Lisa the Bunny Thani of the world, because this representation of Radha as Bunny Thani, coming from the Kishangarh school, is considered the Taj Mahal of painting, because you see fish eyes plus half closed, apabhransham, apabhramsa, pointed nose. Further, you see the wheeling, how beautiful the wheel is. This is Mughal fine brushwork. The color scheme is Rajasthani. The jewelry is Mughal, and she is holding the lotus. The lotus. You can literally see behind her dupatta, her hair. You see the level of finesse here. It has all elements I've discussed since the beginning of painting, wherein Bunny Thani becoming the epitome of painting tradition in India. And I believe that Mona Lisa is a copy, or not even 5% of this. Very, very bad, as it is a very ugly looking woman. The fact of the matter was, she is not the Mona Lisa of India. She is the Bunny Thani of the world. Remember the fact that we were doing this before the British came. Rajput schools had now become so well made because they had the money and they had the Mughal painters. And with Mughal painters and money, this is what you get. Single point perspective. Perfect. Very good. Single point Jahangir perspective. again looking towards one side. 3Dness is there, depth is there. We know that this wheel is front, this wheel is back, and the wheel is showing transparency. It is depth is also there, 3Dness is also there, and you have thereafter Marwar school, which is what is called also the Rangmala painting tradition. But remember only one thing: there was only one Rajasthani school which did not have Mughal influence, which is Mewar, because Maharana Pratap never accepted Mughal service. This is Bani Thani. She's Radha only, but the painting name is Bani Thani. Bani Thani, ban ke than ke, matlab you are all dressed up. All dressed up. Thereafter, last two traditions which exist in India, and with this we end this topic, is Thanjore and Mysore. Thanjore painting you would have seen for sure in your life, which is gold plated. The most expensive tradition in India is this only. Generous use of gold and gemstones. Literally the most beautiful expressions of Lord Krishna, and now everything is represented by Lord Krishna. The Thanjore painting was kept alive by the Marathas. Thereafter, when the Thanjore Nayaks were defeated by the Marathas, both kept it alive. Done on glass with board in the back. Brilliant bright colors, gold leaf use, and smiling Krishna is the standard thing which is there. Sarfarozi Maharaj is the one who took it to the highest level. Together today, if you want to learn and if you can afford, you can also learn Thanjore painting in that regard. You can find these paintings everywhere. If you go in South India, very common, very expensive, but very beautiful representation. So first the Thanjore Nayaks after Vijayanagara Empire kept them alive, then the Marathas. Last is Mysore. Mysore paintings are again kept alive by the Mysore province and rulers of Mysore itself. Hindu gods, but I am discussing Mysore painting for one simple reason. There's a certain technique which they use which is called gesso paste. You would have seen that paintings are done on a cloth which is made hard. That hardness comes because they put zinc oxide and Arabic gum on it, and that makes it very hard. That is called gesso paste. This is one word which you can expect in the examination. Very high bright use of green color, and again you can see a Thanjorish influence on it. And with this we finish painting tradition. Now what I will do is not right now but tomorrow I'll give you a table in which I'll summarize the contribution of all Mughal emperors into painting, and I will summarize this topic first when I come tomorrow, and then we will move to sculpture. But I hope that now you are not scared of the painting chapter of Nitin Singhania. It's a very interesting, a very interesting area if you understand it and try to take an interest in it. So with this, we finish today's lecture. I hope that at least you learned something new about your own culture today and your own understanding today. Maybe you learned something with regards to naturalism, from stylistic to depth to 3Dness. You had a better perspective of a lot of things. Single point perspective means how this camera is looking at me. Milan, this camera is single point perspective. I can move here, but I can move here. It will always look at me. Multi-point perspective is how you see that news channels. One camera there, one camera there, one camera there, one camera there. That is called multi-point perspective. Temple wall painting is mural painting only. That is not part of our discussion. Right? So I see you tomorrow with sculpture and a summary. There is, yes, blessing. That is standard. Basic sabotage and what we call as graffiti, all of that does happen. All of that does happen. We have also sometimes defaced a lot of these paintings. Okay. Thank you. See you tomorrow.